Well, good morning and welcome. This is Clarence Simmons, Loss Prevention Texas, LOPTIPS-1, the No Bull Network right here in Corpus Christi. And this morning we're going to be interviewing our friend and our guest, Mr. Ashley Isaac. He's a retired peace officer here in Corpus Christi and Nueces County from the Nueces County Sheriff's Office. And we want to, first of all, welcome you and good morning, Mr. Isaac.
Good morning.
Uh, Ashley's he's here and he's gonna be talking to us this morning about some things. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with your history as you're from Corpus Christi, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and when
Born
did
and
you
raised.
born and raised in Corpus Christi, and when did you start in law enforcement?
I started in law enforcement October the 5th, I believe it was a Monday, 1980.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't even remember what day I started, period. He just told me the date and the day, so that shows you that his memory his memory is a lot better than mine. So we're gonna move forward. Uh what made you decide to get into law enforcement out of curiosity?
Well, it was just really a fluke deal. I was in Houston and I moved up there to study judo, and I was out with my instructor and another instructor, and we were all having supper, and he asked, and by the way, the other instructor was Ray Richards. My judo instructor was Carl Geis. So he asked Ray how things were going. Ray was a police chief at uh, at the Jacinta College in the North Campus and in Houston, Texas. It was I believe it was uh, Jacinta University. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Well, that's okay. You got the day and the date right, so we just go from there. Go ahead.
Anyway, Carl asked him how things were going at the university. He said, "Well, good help is hard to get." And he said, "Really?" And said, Carl looked at me and said, "You want to be a police officer?" And I said, "I guess so, yes." So that begun my career. And back then, Clarence, in 1980, you had a 6-month privilege of being a peace officer. You could. I went to work that Monday, got a uniform and gun and badge, but I had 6 months to complete an academy. Of course, God guided under the police chief, Ray Richards. And so that began my law enforcement career.
You know, a lot of things have changed since then. We have the T-Code or uh, T-Close, what it was called then, and now T-Code, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. You know, how have things changed as far as training goes?
Well, it's when I went to the academy, Harris County's academy, in I believe 1981. It was, I believe, 450 hours. So it was 10-week course, and now I think it's
Almost 6 months.
almost 6 months at a police academy. Whereas if you go to a law enforcement like Del Mar campus, I believe it's what is the same period,
It's the same period of
Well, I
time
know
now.
it's so many hours. I
Yeah,
think it's 800 hours or something like that. They may go a little less.
yeah. So, well, some of that's kind of been standardized and wow. But you know how things change when we talk about the time factor from then to now. The training has improved so much. Speaking of training, you had a hand in training people.
Yes, from 1995 to 2009, I was assigned to the training division at Nueces County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, and I know that uh, the training at that time, because I went through a couple of your training classes, are pretty you had people rolling around and doing things on the floor and stuff, and that was good. That's the type of training that we need to have. And also, as you did this, you also, and including your training, but you changed your rank several times while you were at the sheriff's office.
Yes, starting as a deputy sheriff and then sergeant in training, and then I was reassigned to the Warrants division, and I made lieutenant a couple of years after I was assigned uh,
What
to
what what is what does the warrant division actually do?
well, by law, the sheriff's office in any county in the state of Texas, all the warrants that are issued from a police department within that county has to be registered with the sheriff's office. And so warrants that come in, and then not only that, our sheriff's office warrants that come in for people that have been found guilty, or well, not guilty, but have been uh, uh, deemed to meet the standards that they
Some type of
have
arrest
an
has been
arrest
issued.
is
Yeah.
arrest warrant has been issued. So then we would go out and look for them. My team would go out and look for them, and bring them in. They make bond, and
Then they'll go out and you have to go out and find them again.
yes, well, they post bond, and if they get out on bond and
Yeah.
there's a no show at the indictment, first thing I want to say was they're indicted, and then the warrant comes out, and then so we have to look for them.
Yeah, I imagine those people don't just come up and say, "Here I am." You have to actually do a little bit of, I guess, footwork to find them sometimes.
Yeah, now some of them will turn themselves in. Majority you have to go out and look for them, and then you have so many avenues to look for people. You have Crime Stoppers, and the sheriff's office had a website, so there were different avenues locally that radio. I mean, TV stations, with post warrants, and then we had a top 10 feature of wanted subjects that would be printed out, and people would see it and call in, and tips would come in.
So, as far as the help from the community, was community pretty helpful in those type situations?
Yes, the more exposure through media and people realize, and especially if there's a monetary value, and then sometimes if the wanted person is trouble in the neighborhood or bothering someone, they're quick to turn them in.
Uh, yeah, you mentioned monetary value, referring back to, I guess, Crime Stoppers and those situations where they offer a reward. I personally, I wasn't wanted. Don't get me wrong. I was an actor in one of those Crime Stoppers deals, and believe it or not, while I was working for a law enforcement agency, and several people called in and said, "Yeah, we know him. He works for y'all." So I was just an actor. So, but that lets you know that a lot of people do watch those things and do take that into consideration and do act on it. So now you mentioned you were doing what type of activity? You said not karate, but what was it?
It was judo,
Judo.
primarily
So
judo.
how did that help you in your law enforcement as far as defensive tactics and things of that nature?
Well, it taught me a lot about reading people and people's moves and hand gestures, because when judo is an up close, it deals with off balance throwing and mat work. So over the years of training in judo, before I got in law enforcement, then that training helps you read people. So if you can read somebody close up, you surely can read them far off, or a couple of feet away. So that really helped me, making eye contact, looking at people, knowing the different off balances, and knowing where their feet are, and body positions and language. So that really helped in uh, teaching
Yeah, and
principles.
I'm sorry, and as far as your use of force, whenever you're trained in that particular aspect, being judo or defensive tactics, uh, would you say the more training you have increases your ability to defend yourself as an officer?
Yes, it does. It
So
does.
that's one of the things that I guess what I'm asking is hands-on training for that type of deal. Is that a good thing as far as hands-on training?
Yes, hands-on training is always an asset. Hands-on, and I'll tell you another thing that's very important too is when I was at Harris County Sheriff's Office, I worked in the jail and they had a second deputy program, and I would ride in patrol on the weekends. But in the jail, you learned there was a you learned how inmates the words and what they use, and
Some of the street language that's out there that they're using in the jail,
yes,
and it
yes, yes,
assisted
it
you.
makes you a well-rounded person to start in a jail environment. Well, there was an older they had a laundry deputy, and I would sneak off the floors, not sneak off the floors, but I would leave the floors and go by the laundry, and there was a these trustees were taking a birthday cake into this room. I said, "Who's that for?" And they told me it was for Deputy Blaylock. So I said, "Well, I followed that cake." And after that, I met uh, Mr. Blaylock, Deputy Blaylock, who was a retired law enforcement officer from West University. And I started asking him questions and scenarios. Over time, I got to know him real well. And in fact, I said, I'm going to ask him a lot of questions. And I wrote down scenarios that law enforcement officers are confronted with. And he would tell me. And I said, man, this guy is right on. And those proved to be valuable to me and saved my life in quite a few circumstances. So picking someone that's older and more experienced and asking them questions is very helpful too, along with training.
Well, you mentioned something helping picking someone that's older, meaning been in the field for a longer period of time, and they know what's happening. Uh, I learned a lot from officers that were had been in the field for a long time. A lot of people they come into and they like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna run down there and and sometimes running down there and jumping in the middle of things is not the way to handle things. Sometimes you have to walk down there, figure out what's going on before you can just start tearing things apart. Because a lot of times, if you tear things apart, you actually don't fix anything. You tear stuff up. Oh,
Oh, yeah, no, so true. And he told me that when he started law enforcement in 1950 something, that he didn't have any training. The sheriff gave him a gun and a badge and, hey, go out and patrol and learn. So he learned things that the hard way, and to have that experience. Well, I know, man, this guy has had a lot of experience that you can't get in an academy. So a lot of older law enforcement officers have that experience, and if you get a mentor like that, very valuable.
yeah, and you said a couple of words, mentor. Somebody that's going to teach you the right way to do something so you can go forth and do what you need to do. Mentors or everybody, I have one that and he was my boss, but he was also a mentor, and I worked for Ronnie Colston, and you know him. Uh, he was, I guess, a mentor to everybody in law enforcement because he had a knack of doing things the right way. Uh, and one of the things he always thought about were, hey, we're not just dealing with criminals, we're dealing with people. And you know, everybody's people. We're all people. I think we were people before we were anything else. So whenever we talk to people, we're talking to people, not talking, I say to them, meaning talking with them, not talking down to them. And as you dealt with people, uh, would you say you used a whole lot of force, or you used a lot of conversation to get them to convince them to do what you wanted them to?
Well, as you know, Clarence, uh, there's a couple of models that they teach you in the academy in law enforcement. The
Hmm.
escalating scale of force is what it's called. And you know, the old school model was a triangle, and it had the very first was presence. You step in a room, a disturbance, or walk in a uniform, your presence can say so much to a room. And then from there, it was presence, requests, commands, threats, on up to deadly force. Well, presence and talking to people. Now, sometimes you have to go right into the action, as you know, but the escalating scale of force was the model that the old school model. They have different models now with the
Yeah,
step
now it's
step.
a 5 step.
It's so many
Mm.
steps to it, but the basic model you built off of. And also when I was in the training division, I had the opportunity to teach the jail school. And
A lot of people don't realize it, but in order to work in the jail, you have to go to
yeah,
school
you
for
have to
that.
have some
Yeah, you
jail
have to have some
training.
training, because
And
if you
and
don't, you get eat alive.
and then it was 40 hours. Now I think it's 3 weeks. But some of the models, the literature that came from the state as directed, those they had some models in there about uh, how to diagrams and quotations, and I learned those. And although I had been doing that, now I could put a word to it. And so it was very valuable jail school. Not only did that the correction future correction officers learn that, but it also benefited me because I took some of those acronyms and I used them. Man, that's what I've been doing. So now I could put a word to it. So it's very important because if you start in the jail, the same people you're going to meet on the street are in the jail that you're going to meet them on the street. So you learn their behaviors and their mannerisms in a jail environment. So I would strongly urge that if you do get in law enforcement, try to work in a correctional setting for a year or so, and it'll teach you managing. Go by the rules, the policy of the department, and you'll know the rules, and those rules will benefit you for a lifetime. Even if you just learn to manage people behind closed doors and behind bars, you'll under rules and regulations. It'll help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and believe it or not, that holds true in almost everything. If you're gonna do it the right way, that's what you need to do. And standard operating procedures, a lot of people will call it rules and regulations. There's always rules and regulations, no matter where you're at, because there's some things you have to do. There's some instructions that you have to follow, no matter what you do. One of the things that I'm going to feed off of what you were just talking about. A lot of people come into this business, and I say law enforcement it's a business. It's just like anything else. We have people that we serve, and people that we're responsible to, the community.
Right.
And so a lot of people, one of the acronyms they use is the ask, tell, and make. I say that the ATM, ask, tell, and make, and I used to say, ask, tell, and make. That sounds like ATM. That means money. Well, if you do the ask, tell, and make acronym, I see you laughing already. The county or whoever, the city, whoever, they're going to be paying out some money because you're going to get sued. So, want to remind people that are new in the business, don't use the ATM method, because uh, the ATM is you giving away money in that case. So,
Exactly.
you want to make sure you follow the proper policies and procedures of your department. And that's why a lot of departments are in the trouble that they're in right now, as far as the the things that they're doing. They're doing the ask, tell, and make, and gee whiz. we have civil suits, and then the officer ends up in jail, and then you know, or you end up getting sued, or the agency gets sued, and that's not why we're in law enforcement. We're in law enforcement to actually the term is, if you look at the proper term, am I? Tell me if I'm wrong. Texas peace officer. Isn't that what it says?
Yeah,
Peace
Texas
officer.
peace officer. You're right.
So, as a Texas peace officer, give me some idea. What does that mean to you? What should we be doing?
As a Texas peace officer, you have obey laws to obey as well as enforce. So,
What you mean? We have to obey the law too as
oh
peace
yeah,
officers? That's not the same. Okay.
and your policy, your department policy are your guidelines too. Yeah, you have to be, and I would always stress that in the private sector or public sector, working for the government, law enforcement, a company always has these policies, and learn those policies. I'll say it'll benefit you.
Yeah, it'll benefit you in as you know, we've seen a lot lately. A lot of people have not followed their department policies and things of that nature, and it's caused them issues. And I guess what we need to do is get back to uh, making sure that the people that we have in these places of responsibility are properly trained, and that hopefully they have an instructor such as Lieutenant Isaacs, uh, and then uh, then things go right for us. But when you don't have an instructor, or you go out there and do what you want, that's when things go terribly bad.
It's true. Yes, it is.
So, what else can you tell me about what's it like to be retired now?
Well, Clarence, it feels pretty good. It's something that you've done that I did for right at 40 years. So the moment came, and I said, you know what, it's time to retire. And it's something, that it's a tough decision, but more time with the family, traveling, I have a grandson. I take him to school and more time with him. So it's a benefit. It really is. And you stay, after all these years oh, I can't go to the doctor now because I got to work. So, it's time to catch up.
I get a little, I bet the phone rings now. You say, I can answer the phone now because they're not calling me because of a problem.
I tell you, there were times when, Friday evening come, you're happy because I was off weekends. Oh, joyous. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, got to go to work in the morning. Although I love my job, I mean, but still, you had that reality. So when you retire, it's like every day is what you want to be: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah,
Super. Well, I'm glad that uh, you're having fun in retirement, and one of these days, do you ever see yourself maybe uh, getting into I guess a classroom type set and doing anything and doing any training or 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 doing any type of volunteer stuff or whatever. I know I'm not going to ask you to throw me around because I know that you could twist me like a pretzel if you wanted to because I've seen that happen. But uh, do you ever think you can do any type of volunteering or anything of that nature, or just volunteering to be grandpa?
you know, uh, right now it's volunteering to be grandpa. However, I would still like to, slowly get back into judo and do some teaching, uh, and because it's so valuable. The lessons in martial arts is that you live not only what you practice, on the mat, safeguard and respect for people. You take that into the field to street with you. It's a life. I competed years ago, but after that, I still use the principles of of that I learned on the mat to be nice and courteous to people. And so I see myself doing a little bit of rolling around on the mat, and some teaching some off balance techniques. And
Speaking of rolling around on the mat off balance, how well did you do this judo stuff? Did you go to any law enforcement type events?
well, when I was at Harris County, I went to my first ever police games. They had the law enforcement Olympics.
The police have games?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, talk to me about that.
They had the law enforcement Olympics and the World Police and Fire Games. And I believe it was the first ever was in 1985. I believe it was in Phoenix, Arizona. Went out to the law enforcement Olympics, and thereby over the next following years after 1983, 84, 85, 86, I went to several police games and law enforcement Olympics, and it was very interesting to meet Russians, United Kingdom, Canadians, and as well as seeing more, police officers in the United States.
So these were worldwide games,
Yeah, the
basically.
World
Mhm.
Police and Fire Games, and they were open to policemen, firemen, and retired police officers. So that was quite an experience for me, meeting people and going about with the joy you bring from it, and it was just a fulfillment that.
Yeah, how did you rate? I know it's worldwide. How did you rate in those events, any of the events that you went to?
Well, the World Police and Fire Games, I came in second
What?
in one year, uh, and then I get a bronze in following year. But
Wait a minute, wait a minute. We're talking about you're working at what agency then? Harris County?
Harris County Sheriff's Office,
Uh-huh.
I went to one in Phoenix, Arizona, and then when I came back to Corpus, I worked in Nueces County Sheriff's Office, 1986, 87. I went to some more. I went to one in the first one. I went to one in British Columbia, and I went to one in Alberta, Canada, several in California, and Chicago. So it was quite to meet people. And judo people are good people. Where you meet them, and you have friends for life. So it was just a wonderful thing. I went to the law enforcement Olympics in Las Vegas. I believe it was 1988, if I'm not mistaken. So some I gold medal here in the States, but when you get to the world police, you meet
Yeah,
people
that's
from all
yeah.
world over. But it was quite an experience.
Well, you've done a whole lot of things. A lot of people don't realize uh, uh, all the different aspects that there is to law enforcement, the different things you can do, the different divisions you can be in, uh, all the there's a lot of stuff, and everybody thinks it's just like let me ask you a question. Have you jumped off any bridges like they do on TV or second story buildings or anything like that?
No, no, I haven't.
I'm just checking.
I've stayed counted.
So it's not like Hawaii 5-0 then, I guess. No, no buildings, no.
Well, different police officers have different experiences.
Oh, yeah, hey, I ain't jumped off no buildings either.
And I know you at the time did more DWIs probably than anybody in Nueces County. So my experience was patrol, but then I worked civil warrants, missing persons training, back to civil warrants. So I had
And just
a
for information, I didn't jump off any buildings either. I just want to let you know that. But
you arrested quite a few over bridges.
well, I stopped a woman from jumping off one once, but yeah, that was fun. Hey, once it was over, I was like, oh, boy, that was interesting.
And working in county law enforcement, I've always loved the county law enforcement. And back in 1986, 87, you had I believe it was eight
8 precincts.
precincts.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to your precinct, and then it was precinct 8.
Yeah, precinct 8.
And that's how I met your constable, Ronnie Poston. And I would deliver the papers that in your area.
He would bring us the stuff so we could go out and do some work.
So, and it was just a wide open feeling of working in the county. And then in 2005, when I was reassigned to the Warrants division, I started, I stayed there in Warrants and liked it. And, we did trips. We go out of town, pick up prisoners, bring them back. If they're arrested, sometimes people with warrants will flee to another jurisdiction.
Another county or another state.
And then they'll do something, and then somebody will call the police and, and check them through the NCIC and TCIC and say, oh, you have a warrant or something. And so then they would send us a notice that, hey, these people have to be picked up, and either we go or, we would send a transport agency to pick them up.
Yeah. Well, actually, I tell you what, I've learned a lot today, and this is like I said, an informational broadcast for people, and it was very good to have you on, and I'm glad we had you on, and I think now you see why I wanted to have you on. It's a lot of people, they don't know, and some people don't even know that. Believe it or not, if they live inside Corpus Christi, they live inside Nueces County, and the sheriff department covers the whole county, not just outlying area. It's responsible for the city also that lies within. So a lot of people don't even realize that.
And to know that it's each city is broken up in precincts, and like you mostly termed in voting precincts, but those voting precincts have constables and law enforcement officers, deputy constable, law enforcement officers to serve papers and also patrol. So yeah, a lot of people don't know that they just live inside the city, but it's
that city is inside the county.
It's inside little different precincts. And one other thing I wanted to say, I just remembered my first law enforcement. It was at San Jacinto Junior College. So I couldn't think of it at first. North Campus. There was a main campus in Pasadena, Texas, but they had a satellite campus, another campus, and it was in Northeast Harris County off of Uvalde Road. So that's where it was, North Campus, San Jacinto Junior College, North Campus.
Well, I'll tell you this: the gentleman that made contact with you and got you to go into law enforcement, he deserves a whole lot of kudos, man, and you do too, because you've done a whole lot of positive things. And the thing is, a lot of times, people that are in law enforcement, they never get noted for the positive things that happen. Uh, the thousands and thousands and thousands of positive things that happen, and then one person that doesn't do what they're supposed to do, they go off and do it. Everybody knows about that, but they don't know about the positive stuff. So we want to thank you for being one of those positive things, and
Appreciate it.
And the people that you've worked with, the people that you trained, the people that brought you into this profession. It's more than it's a profession. And thank you for being with us today. Again, Ashley Isaacs, retired Nueces County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant. And we want to thank you for being with us. And thanks again for the time.
Thank you for having me, Clarence. God bless you and your audience. Thanks.